The Complete Fighter Podcast.
Welcome to the Complete Fighter Podcast. My name is Cormac and this is episode 15. Hope you're all staying safe, keeping well. This will be a short enough episode today, guys, because obviously it goes without saying there's not much happening in the world of boxing and MMA, so it'll be a short enough episode. Just to say, first, two quick things. One, unfortunately, I won't be joined by Sam in this episode. He has prior commitments. He's quite busy with something at the moment, so it'll actually just be me, unfortunately. So it'll be mainly boxing, which is my area. We'll be discussing a small bit of MMA the last 5 minutes. So if you're listening to this on SoundCloud, on Spotify, and YouTube, if your interest is only in MMA, skip to the last 5 minutes. Secondly, guys, what I just want to say before we get into the episode, I apologize that on the last episode 14, Sam and I did an episode recorded on Zoom, and you could only hear about 30% of what I said. Sam's audio was perfect. You could only hear about 30% of what I said. There were a lot of sound skips and such. I'm not really too sure what the story was. We did our best to edit it as best as we could, but after recording it and such, we just figured, we may as well still put it out. So I apologize about that, guys. Fingers crossed the audio will be perfect for me today. But we'll just crack on. Just firstly, the thing I want to cover quite fresh, in the news in yesterday and the day before were Deontay Wilder's comments about Tyson Fury. Now, for those of you who don't know, Deontay Wilder is the former WBC heavyweight champion of the world. He fought Tyson Fury on December 13th, 2018. Very controversial draw. It was a very controversial draw, even though Tyson Fury, most of the boxing world, myself included, think won that fight. It was then the case that they had the rematch in February, and the undefeated Deontay Wilder was pretty much destroyed for all 7 rounds of the fight before the towel was thrown in by Deontay Wilder's corner. Deontay Wilder, he came out and said of Tyson Fury, who took his WBC belt off him, he said, "It's not over. In my eyes, I don't see Fury as the champion. He ain't the champion yet. We've still got one more fight left of 3 fights. And I'm looking forward to giving the world the best of Deontay Wilder." Very strange comments by Deontay Wilder. Let me just state this up front, okay? You can't make a statement like that when you didn't perform well at all in the rematch. The only reason why Deontay Wilder is getting the rematch is for one of 2 reasons. One, there's a rematch clause in the contract agreed between his side and Tyson Fury's side. Secondly, he's getting the rematch clause for the simple case that, he maybe deserves it because he was champion for so long. He had 10 defenses off his WBC title. But this brings an interesting conversation to the whole thing, because he's not only talking nonsense when he says he doesn't believe Tyson Fury to be champion. If you lose your belt, the person who you lose the belt to is the champion. If you're the champion, you lose your belt, the person who you lost your belt to is the new champion. That's the way boxing works. That's the way combat sports works. I don't know where he's getting this stupid idea from. Tyson Fury must have punched him particularly hard in the head for him to come out with these idiotic comments. And I don't know why he's saying them. I don't know what his motivation is. I don't know who's telling him that this is a good idea to come out and say. So he would have come out and said that, for example, and that Tyson Fury is not the real champion. And I'm thinking, are you saying that to try to create interest, create buzz for the third fight, the rematch, that most of the world has no interest in seeing anyways, because Tyson Fury beat him so convincingly the first 2 times? He must be doing that to try to make himself relevant again. And it goes to show that boxing is quite an unforgiving world, that Deontay Wilder can win 40 fights, only draw 1, and then suddenly he's regarded as a bum. I think that's quite unfair, but to just say about him again, and I've expressed this on previous episodes with Sam, he's making these comments because no one in his circle is brave enough to tell him what he's saying is idiotic. I don't know who his circle are. I have no interest in ever knowing who his circle are. But I do know, based upon what he says, that they're all just a bunch of yes men. And they're not real friends. They're just people who cling to success, tell you how great you are, take their bit and leave. It's always said about successful people that the last ones to come into your circle are the first ones to leave. And I think that's a very good point. He seems to be surrounded by, and this is where I worry about Deontay Wilder, he seems to be surrounded by a lot of people who just tell him what he wants to hear. A lot of people who, you know, when he wins, it's us. When he loses, it's you. That, you know. So if you want to stand any sort of chance of winning in the third fight, which I consider to be very unlikely, he needs to banish those people and completely change everyone who's around him. But, you know, that's up to him. He's the professional boxer, not me. Yeah, I can't really see why he would come out and make those such stupid comments. I think the only reason would be that he's probably fucked up in the head in some way, like most boxers. He probably can't explain to himself why Tyson Fury beat him so badly. The reason why Tyson Fury beat him so badly is that Tyson Fury came forward against him for all 7 rounds, like went into him, came forward, put it on him from minute one. You saw Tyson Fury run across the ring from the minute the bell of the first round went. That's why Deontay Wilder won, because no one had ever tried to do that with Wilder, because they fear his right hand. They fear the fact that he's probably the hardest hitting heavyweight in boxing history. So, you know, it wasn't that Deontay Wilder did particularly bad. He did look worse. But it was just that Fury was just so excellent, put on such an artistic performance. But just to finish with Wilder, I'll say this. He's showing a serious lack of class. I'll put it that way. He's showing a serious lack of class, but I suppose what else can you expect of the man? He's the same man who, talk about kicking someone while they're down. Deontay Wilder is the same man who in June last year, after Anthony Joshua lost against Andy Ruiz unexpectedly, Wilder came out and said Anthony Joshua is not a true champion. Anthony Joshua's career has consisted of lies, contradictions and gifts. Now I'd maybe agree with the last word there, gifts. But to come out, putting heavyweight rivalries to one side, to come out and say that about a man when he's down shows a serious lack of class and not really great character. I don't know if it's that he's got bad judgment, but not showing good character there at all. So I'm not really surprised that, just like Tyson Fury, just like Deontay Wilder would kick someone when they're down, someone who does that would also be the same type of person who can't accept that they've lost, has no humility whatsoever. So I can't really say I'm surprised that he's making these stupid comments, especially after he embarrassingly said 3 days after the loss on February 25th, I think it was, this year, he came out and said about the Tyson Fury fight, my legs were gone from minute one from the 45-pound suit that I wore into the ring. Now, for him to make that idiotic comment as well is just amazing. Like, he's having a great year for making stupid comments, especially when you consider the fact that that Star Wars Batman suit he was wearing not only looked ridiculous, but A, I highly doubt it weighed 45 pounds. Secondly, it's not like you're wearing it across the Sahara Desert. You know, you're wearing that for the ring walk. That's, 80 meters. Deontay Wilder is a strong athlete whose height is 6'7". He weighs 16 stone. There are British army officers who have to carry about 80 pounds of equipment on battlefields and across zones in the Middle East in 70 degrees weather and 60, 70 degrees weather, and Wilder's making an excuse that, the reason he didn't perform well in the rematch was due to that. Absolutely ridiculous. But I'll tell you what, guys, we've discussed Deontay Wilder now on the previous 3 episodes, so I'm just going to leave it there. Something else that is in the news for boxing the past few days is of Andy Ruiz, that he's potentially signing with 2019 Trainer of the Year, Eddie Reynoso. Eddie Reynoso, for those of you who don't know, he's the trainer for WBC flyweight champion Julio Cesar Martinez, young prospect Ryan Garcia, and of course champion Canelo Alvarez. But Andy Ruiz, as I said, it is in the news that there's that mutual interest of being trained by Eddie Reynoso. And Andy Ruiz sacked his coach, Manny Robles, a few months ago. Manny Robles, who was his trainer for his previous few fights, including the first fight against Anthony Joshua, where he became world champion, and his first defense in the rematch against Anthony Joshua, which he lost in Saudi Arabia last year. Manny Robles was there and seemed to put together a good game plan, which is to come forward to beat Joshua at the jab, and to show great viciousness in the ring. But he decided to get rid of Manny Robles, and it came out afterwards, but we kind of already knew this, that Andy Ruiz was just not committed for that camp. We knew that already because he came in heavier in the rematch than he did in the first fight. And clearly he just wasn't taking it seriously. I doubt his diet was up to scratch. There were videos of him on Instagram only a few weeks before the fight drinking. He probably didn't take the camp seriously, so it wasn't Manny Robles' fault, but still he saw the need to fire Manny Robles. But then now in the current day, we're hearing about, as I said, about Andy Ruiz going to Eddie Reynoso. And I'll tell you what I think about that. You've got someone like Reynoso, who's over Ryan Garcia, Oscar Valdez, Julio Cesar Martinez, Canelo Alvarez. Would he have space for a former heavyweight champion who lost his 4 belts in the very first defense, who did not perform well, did not show commitment, did not show discipline in the biggest fight of his life? Would Reynoso, 2019 boxing trainer of the year, have space for someone like Andy Ruiz? And I know the whole thing of Andy Ruiz being the first boxer of Mexican descent to become heavyweight champion. I know there's that side of it, and Reynoso mentioned that, for that reason he'd be honoured to train Ruiz. And then he mentioned as well, he said, and Andy's a great fighter, which we know he of course is. But Andy Ruiz is truly the weak link in the heavyweight division now. Because he performed so poorly in the rematch. And I don't, regardless of what Reynoso might say in the media, I don't know if, when push comes to shove, he would commit to that. Now, I don't know why Andy Ruiz, when he went to Teddy Atlas, why they couldn't agree for Teddy Atlas to train Andy Ruiz. I don't know. I would say, but I think it may be for similar enough reasons, which is that Teddy Atlas maybe thought Andy Ruiz would have serious discipline problems. And I think he will. And that's why I think the Reynoso partnership, fair enough, they both have the Mexican heritage, Mexican blood. Fair enough that's a camp of Mexicans. It would be good to train around fellow world champions. But I cannot see Reynoso having space, having patience for someone who does have discipline issues. Now, the loss against Anthony Joshua, where he didn't show commitment. He wasn't showing up to training camp, according to Manny Robles, his former trainer Manny Robles. He didn't really care that much about losing the correct amount of weight. Just wasn't showing discipline. I mean, that loss where he performed so poorly against Joshua in the rematch, where his preparation wasn't up to scratch, that might serve as a wake-up call for Andy Ruiz. Who knows? But again, I come back to this. If you weren't disciplined for the biggest fight in your life, how can you be disciplined for when you're looking to get the big fights again? And I don't think the big fights are there for him. Fury's wrapped up with the mandatory. Sorry, with the rematch to complete the trilogy with Wilder due to take place in October. Anthony Joshua will be fighting Kubrat Pulev. Dylan White will be fighting Alexander Povetkin. He'd then be able to fulfill potentially his WBC mandatory, which would be the winner of Tyson Fury or Wilder, or it is the case that the winner of Fury will face Joshua after Joshua faces Pulev. Then, as I say, you've also got Alexander Usyk against Derek Chisora. That'll probably be a WBO final eliminator, and whoever wins that would become WBO mandatory for the winner of Joshua Pulev or Joshua Fury. So where would there be space for Andy Ruiz? And it has to come down to this: he doesn't deserve it. I understand that's horrible to say, but he doesn't deserve it. He just did so poorly in the rematch that he doesn't deserve it. Now, I know that's horrible for me to say, but Sam and I have discussed this in a previous episode. You cannot come in such a disgraceful shape against Anthony Joshua when you're getting paid $12 million in Saudi Arabia, the biggest fight of the year. You're coming in terrible shape. You don't even seem like you have a game plan. And the entire media has been saying months before that Anthony Joshua is going to fight on the back foot. He's going to fight very defensively, box very defensively. He's going to work on the jab and then, never be flat-footed. And you just look like you didn't prepare for that at all. That's your fault. Blame trainers all you want, change trainers all you want. That's your fault. So he does need to move forward, but he needs to address the discipline issue first. And on his Instagram all the time, he's putting up photos of his cars and all this, even before the lockdown. Putting up photos of his cars and his money and all this, which he truthfully made off 2 fights. Money changes people. Could he get that discipline back? I don't know. In the future. I hope he does. And people might be surprised to hear me say that because I was laying into him probably unfairly the past few minutes. I hope he does. And the reason why I hope he does is he's an enjoyable boxer to watch. Go back and look at his fight against Joseph Parker. Look at his fight against Dimitrenko, excuse me. Sorry, got mixed up at the middleweight. Dimitrenko there for a minute. Derevchenko. Go look at his fight against Dimitrenko, who he fought before the first Anthony Joshua fight. It's worth a watch. That's what I would suggest to you listeners. But it's something interesting to see, to think. Would a trainer help Andy Ruiz? We'd love to hear your thoughts, guys. You can follow us on Instagram @FighterPodcast, on Twitter @FighterPodcast, on Facebook you just @FighterPodcast. You can find us on Facebook by just searching complete Fighter Podcast. And if you're listening to this on Spotify, it's also available on SoundCloud and vice versa. So, 2 last things before we finish up. One, Eddie Hearn came out 2 days ago on IFL TV, and he said that there is a strong possibility that he might take fights abroad to Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. Now, this is interesting. This is interesting because I'd be interested to see, which fights he bring over. I would say it'll probably be the next few big fights, pay-per-view fights that he would bring over. So that's in order. That's Dillian Whyte versus Alexander Povetkin, Derek Chisora versus Dillian Whyte versus Alexander Povetkin. Also on that card, Katie Taylor versus Amanda Serrano if it still happens. Derek Chisora versus Alexander Usyk, and then the third event is Anthony Joshua versus Kubrat Pulev. Now here's the thing: Eddie Hearn could try and mesh some of those events, maybe put some of the biggest fights into one supercard. I would predict he may do that. He said that he's looking to July to do that. So that would be interesting. How realistic is it to happen in Saudi Arabia? I would say quite realistic. Because they could just have it in the middle of a desert, behind closed doors, in one of those stadiums in the middle of a desert. Who knows? That's more realistic than any sort of fight island thing which Dana White is going on about. But Eddie Hearn moving fights abroad in July, the next three big events, AJ Pulev, Whyte Povetkin, Chisora versus Usyk. That's an interesting thought, and I think it's more realistic than Dana White's idea of the fight island. But Dana White seems to be kind of going off the rails right now on that topic. It is the case that the fight that was supposed to happen for UFC 249 was obviously Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Tony Ferguson. That was obviously replaced by Justin Gaethje versus Tony Ferguson for April 18th. And then it was the case that he was, of course, and Dana White was, of course, asked to stand down by Disney, which he did, Disney and ESPN, which he did, and that all UFC events were cancelled indefinitely. But the odd thing is that all fights UFC fights are apparently cancelled indefinitely, but only a few days ago. So 2 weeks after the cancellation of April 18th was announced, only 2 days ago, 3 days ago, Dana White apparently came out and said he didn't make it a proper announcement now. A lot of what I'm about to say is rumour. That on May 9th, certain fights that were supposed to be UFC 250 will be combined with the replaced main event for UFC 249. So that UFC 250 to go ahead on May 9th, 3 weeks from today, would be headline main events would be Justin Gaethje versus Tony Ferguson for the UFC interim lightweight belt. Co-main event would be Henry Cejudo versus Dominic Cruz for the bantamweight title. Amanda Nunes versus Felicia Spencer for the featherweight title. And then on the undercard, you've also got a pretty juicy fight in the form of Anthony Pettis versus Donald Cerrone. I think that's very interesting. But you have to wonder, guys, you're talking about 3 title fights there. Francis Ngannou also fighting, I forgot to say. A lot of this rumoured, but apparently they've all publicly accepted. If you're talking about such good fights like that, nobody, this whole Corona thing is up in the air. Regardless of what certain politicians are saying, nobody really knows for how long this is going to go on for. Nobody really knows when we can go back to our lives as they once were. But you have to wonder, are those fights, the ones I called out there, are they too good to have behind closed doors? What I mean by that is, should they not just be saved until fans can safely travel to events and attend events? Something to consider, maybe. But I also find it strange as well that Dana White on social media has not been talking about the postponed date of May 9th at all. Not on the UFC May 9th UFC Twitter account have not been talking about May 9th, the postponed date at all. Dana White has apparently confirmed to Brad Okamoto that May 9th is the postponed date to happen in Tashi Royal Casino in Tashi Palace. Tashi Palace Casino in California. Apparently that's the venue. Dana White's apparently confirmed that it's Brad Okamoto, but he's saying that through other people. It appears to be leaked. I haven't seen an interview where he confirms it. It's Brad Okamoto, but I don't. Should we not just wait until all this entire pandemic is over before we can have the big fights? This could go on for longer. So maybe people do want to see the big fights now, because myself included, a lot of people miss sport. Maybe, is it safe? Will the fighters, be tested correctly? Will the refs get tested correctly? These are all questions that Dana White has to answer and has not convincingly answered up to now. So we'll wait and see. But it'd be interesting to see if May 9th does go ahead. I assume all those fighters are staying in camp. Tony Ferguson, apparently just for the laugh, he made 155. Well, not really for the laugh, but I think it was a dig at Khabib Nurmagomedov, because they're obviously supposed to fight April 18th, UFC 249 before whatever. They were supposed to fight a fifth time cancelled, and Khabib's famously struggled to make weight. But Tony Ferguson, even though he's not fighting tonight because the event's cancelled, made weight anyways, put it online, and he said, just as a dig at Khabib, and just to show commitment that he can make the weight, unlike Khabib, and that's pretty interesting, I have to say. I just want to, when he put up a photo of him making weight, Tony Ferguson did, and McGREGOR retweeted the photo and said, "Ha ha ha! You will be bet to the absolute nucleus pulposus when I get a hold of you, kid." It's interesting for McGREGOR to say that. McGREGOR versus Tony Ferguson, a fight which could realistically happen in the not too distant future, and a fight which I think, which I think all you listeners, and myself included, I might be an MMA casual. Sam, as you all know, is the aficionado. He's the MMA genius. But a fight we all would like to see, I think it's fair to say. Ferguson versus McGREGOR. But of course, this May 9th thing will need to be clarified first. We need to see if that will go ahead. But listen, guys, there isn't really much else to discuss, and I'm not going to discuss MMA further, because obviously Sam isn't unfortunately here. He will be, I'm sure, for the next episode. But guys, listen, thanks for tuning in. As I said, that was a short enough episode. If you'd like to follow us again on social media, @Fighter Podcast on Twitter and Instagram, and follow us Complete Fighter Podcast on Facebook, we'd appreciate if you give this podcast a share, give it a like, and it'd be much appreciated. Guys, we'll be talking to you on episode 16. Take care, stay safe.